welcome everybody. I'm so glad you could be here today for another Autism and Entertainment webinar. And I'm excited that our speaker today is Kyle Boyd. We love Kyle. Kyle has been a good friend to Autism and Entertainment and to our community. He's the guy who a number of our interns and interns from Exceptional Minds have gotten to know. So he's an amazing guy, and I'm really looking forward to him talking about portfolios. Just a little bit more about us if this is the first time you're attending. Our mission is to increase employment for work-ready autistic talent in the entertainment industry. So what we want to do is find places for everybody to work at. And we think the way to do that is to have companies be thinking about neuro-inclusion and want to include as many people who think differently as possible. We want to enhance your brand by demonstrating your talents and skills that we've seen over the last year or two since we've been working as Autism and Entertainment. We want to share resources that are available to help the organizations bring you on, things like Department of Rehab and regional centers, paid internship programs. And finally, we want to give you a pathway to success, kind of help you figure out your path. Everybody's path is going to be different, and we want to assist you through things like this webinar about how do you make yourself successful, because it's not going to be anybody else making you successful. It's up to you. Membership is really important to Autism and Entertainment. This year we announced membership, and why is it important? Nothing is free, and the more money that we're able to put together, the more that we can do for you. So if everybody just contributes a little bit, we can have enough money to do a lot of things. Our membership is $10 a month for individuals, or you can sign up for a year for $100. Educational partners is $30 a month, and we've just introduced business membership, which is $395 a year for a business. Now, there are benefits besides just supporting our organization in becoming a member. And one of them is what we're doing is having little 15-minute discussions with our speakers, and only members will be selected. And I'm thrilled that our member selected this time is Russell Sayer. Russell is a graduate of Exceptional Minds, and he just joined us in April on April 28th. I want to mention some other perks that are coming your way that you might get excited about. We'll have another set of discussions, 15 minutes discussions, and our next webinar is on film festivals. And so these are a number of people who are associated with different film festivals, which is a great way for you to share content that you've created and get some notoriety. And Autism and Entertainment has been lucky in that all our documentaries that we've created, and we've created, I think, 4 of them, or well, plus the ones, maybe 8 or 9 in total when we count the ones that we did for the conference. And a number of them have been accepted at film festivals. So we just found out that our recent one, which covered Spectrum Labs, highlighting Jorge Gutierrez, has been accepted by, I can't say. Anyway, it's exciting news for us sharing our content and getting some publicity around it. One of the exciting things we're offering are studio tours for members. So these are special tours. These aren't just like going to Universal Studios. These are tours by the people who work there, and they give you an opportunity to see inside different production studios, how they work, and meet some of the staff. And we had one at DreamWorks on April 8th, we just got word that we could do another one on July 16th, so we'll be announcing more about that later. And then also we just found out that Warner Brothers Animation Studios is going to allow us to have a tour on July 15th. So we'll be announcing those later. So you'll see the little icon there. We'll be sending out only notices to members about how to participate in these things. So be sure and join Autism in Entertainment. And welcome. Welcome, Kyle.
Hi, well, thank you so much. Nice to have some familiar faces here too. Good to see everyone. Thank you so much for having me. You're a great organization. I'm always happy to help support anywhere that I can. So I'm really happy to help assist today. So thank you for having me. So I can start off. I'll do a little intro. My name's Kyle. I'm an artist manager here at Disney Television Animation. I've been at TVA for Disney TV Animation for about 14 years. I started out in production management, and then recruitment, and then now artist management. I think it's been about 8 years in artist management. And so what that is I'm able to just focus on our internal artist community. And specifically, I oversee all of our designers, story artists, art directors, and directors. In addition, our internship program each summer, which I'm really proud of as well. And so I have just a little background as well. I have a background as an artist myself. I started out as a 2D animator focusing on 2D animation, and then I learned 3D animation and didn't really love it. I like being a drafts person, and 3D animation was kind of like, for myself, kind of like drawing with a brick or with oven mitts on. And so I really put all that energy and all that focus towards character design and storyboarding. And so I did that at multiple studios here in Los Angeles and in New York City. Um, then when I came back from New York, I kind of wanted to go into sort of this sort of area of support and the production sort of side of things. So I'm really grateful and really that I'm able to be here at TVA and support all of our artist individuals. And I kind of jokingly say, I'm now an artist who manages our artists, so I like to think they're in good hands. Um, but thank you for having me today. I'm happy to go over, to highlight and showcase any, areas in your portfolio as like to suggest any areas to maybe, like I said, highlight and showcase. So I'm going to share my screen, or to start, um, one of the things, I'm probably gonna be a little redundant today. You'll probably hear me say the word variety and just range, because those two areas are super important as an artist in any given area. And so one of the best things that I tell even our artist community is to really, in any specific area that you're interested in, whether that's storyboarding or character design or any area that you're comfortable in, that you enjoy doing, definitely having in your portfolio a lot of variety, a lot of range. So what that means, having very different background. If you're a background artist, for example, having very different backgrounds, so that looks almost like you're in your each page or each of your portfolio, or clicking through a portfolio. It almost looks like you're changing the channel on a television, and it's a different cartoon each time. And so definitely showing that you can have your ability to adapt to different styles is so important, especially in the television space, because, for example, all of our shows are so different in tone, sensibility, and style. And just being able to adapt to any of those styles and sort of hit the ground running, as early as on, is really, really important to continue any growth and momentum and opportunity. And so definitely, just building that range in your portfolio is something that we really encourage, whether that be in providing for opportunities in a PDF, of your portfolio, or having a website link that for people to review your work, and making it very clear that that specific area that you want to focus on, and that you're passionate about, is very clear that you are a background artist or you're a storyboard artist, and having all those different examples in your portfolio is really important. So I want to share my screen. I'm happy to go through some of the different roles, from art roles and story roles. And I guess also worth mentioning at the top, generally in feature animation, there can be, visual development artists, and like they can do a variety of things as a visual development artist in feature animation. And so that means they're designing characters or props or backgrounds or environments, and doing line and color. in the television space, generally all those roles are broken up into different individuals doing those specific roles on a show. And so you really want to be, if you have that area of focus like storyboarding, you want to be really, you know, or design or character design, excuse me, you want to make sure you have like, a a big breadth of work and, great variety in there. So let me share my screen real quick. I'm happy to go through some of those roles. So I can start with location design. And so location design, if you're a location designer or you have interest in location design, definitely having backgrounds that are, some that are really dynamic, some that have depth and volume, and some that are maybe like flat, flat television show, maybe more, like a prime time look or something that's really, something that's, more symmetrical instead of sort of cinematic and dynamic. Having areas that have foreground, middle ground, and background is also really important to show depth. Having backgrounds that are, just it's very simple, and then also some that are really complex. Also just knowledge of your perspective is really important. And as a location designer, you can see the one on the right, really, really strong, straightforward perspective. So definitely highlighting that is important. Also having different variety and line weight is really important. You can see in this one on the left, and then the one on doesn't really have, there's no really line there. This particular production worked mostly in shape and really being having, there's a little bit of line work in there, but it's very, selective. And then you have the one excuse me, the one on the right, which is very heavy line art. And so, and focus on a little bit of shape, but definitely that inconsistent line quality these are two good examples of very different kinds of backgrounds. Um, Certain shows have shape-oriented design and some have a line-oriented design. Some productions have very variety in their line weight in their thick and thin lines um, to add depth and whatnot in a background, and some have consistent line art. Maybe having are also encouraged to have interiors and exterior backgrounds. So indoors and outdoor backgrounds that the characters are performing on, because these backgrounds are really the sets that the characters are performing on, and also having sort of organic backgrounds, so like something with trees or outdoors or woods or a lake, and then having something very industrial like a more architectural, like buildings and cities and streets and whatnot. So having just in that location design area, just having all that sort of variety in there is really encouraged. And then here's a couple of other examples. The one on the left definitely shows depth and variety and foreground, middle ground, background. This particular show always loved having something in the foreground, sort of staging and composing the scene. And then you have the one on the right, which was a really just consistent line work and really not flat, but definitely just a consistent etching sort of line art. So you can see the wide variety of differences in these two particular productions. And then when you're a location designer, you're just designing the locations on a production. And then what happens then is then a background painter goes in, and then their role on that production is to just paint the backgrounds. So you can see I can flip back and forth between the one on the right. You can see the color really adds that depth and really makes that particular background pop. And then the one on the left you can see is the painted version. You can see all that lighting and really sort of highlights the area that the characters are potentially performing in, that really brightly lit area there. Um, so really composing is really important as a background painter. So definitely as a background painter, understanding color theory and color harmony and color relationships, understanding color scripts or color keys, sort of like a thumbnail painting for the team to sort of use as a guide for the painters. Also, as I mentioned, lighting. Lighting is so important. Where is the light source coming from? Understanding, shadows and adding that depth, and And so definitely focusing on, understanding lighting and how it can affect the mood of the scene and what's happening in the scene and what story is being told. Having simple or complex backgrounds. So definitely, these are two good examples of more complexity with all the line weight and, and texture. And then the other one has, the one on the right has a little more of like almost like a film grain kind of to it in its execution. And so just definitely having, understanding of really complex, heavy painterly backgrounds, and then ones that are more straightforward, just, grass is green, sky is blue, and, just having that variety there too. Also having interiors and exteriors is really important because this is where, once again, where the characters are performing. So you can kind of see in the one on the right where it's almost like an establishing shot, but you can see it's kind of bright in that middle area. So definitely that's where the action is taking place, and you can see kind of the shadows on the top left-hand side is not the area of focus. These are two very, very different examples. One is very sort of like Ivan Durrell or Sleeping Beauty, very, wild and dynamic and bold shapes. And the other one is, a little more architectural, has a little more design elements to it, but a little more controlled. So definitely having interiors, exteriors, as I mentioned, organic outdoor scenes, as well as more, basic indoor sets, as well as, cityscapes and whatnot. So that's background paint and also character design. So once again, a character designer on a series is just designing the characters. They're not even doing the color. They're just doing the line art, everything from model sheets and turnarounds and mouth charts and special poses. So definitely understanding weight and volume as an artist and character designer, weight and volume and scale and making sure that your shape language is reading as well. So you can see these two different shows have very, very different shape language as well as their line weight as well. One has really thick and textured line weight, and then the one on the right has a very consistent, very line weight to their show. One has more edges and sort of angles, and the other has appeal and is round and soft and so it just that goes to show the difference in styles in their show. Um, but keeping things on model as a character designer is really important. Making sure it's consistently looking the same is one thing that is encouraged to include in a character design portfolio. Once again, having so these are turnarounds. If you're a character designer, you're generally just doing turnarounds and special poses and all the and different expression sheets. So definitely seeing having turnarounds in your portfolio and showing all the character from different angles is really important, because that's a tool that we would use on a production to see what that character looks like from every different angle. Then there's costume changes that might be fun to include. So whenever a character goes to a different, they go camping or they go to a different, go to the pool or something, or they go, they're a baseball player or something. Just all those costumes need to be designed. So having a variety in there as well. This is an example of mouth charts. So understanding, every different sort of enunciating every syllable or every word and how what that mouth shape looks like. And so that's a great example of a mouth chart. Then we can go, so it's character design. And definitely character design, I can go back. Definitely having your ability to adapt as a character designer is also very, very, very important. You can see these two productions. One is a 3D show on the left, and one is a 2D show on the right. And so definitely, depending on the limitations of that and the resources on that show, and if it's a 3D show, meaning it has to be modeled in 3D. And so having it a little more technical, and then maybe in a 2D show, they're not having to model that character, obviously. And so it's just a stylized line art. So prop design. Prop design, this is a fun example. just backpacks in all different kinds of styles. And you can see every show style is so different in their design and in their range. And so this is kind of a fun example of just like what different kind of different kind of backpacks you could put in your portfolio. Um, and for prop design, a prop is really anything that a character interacts with, or that's not adhered to the background. So that could be anything from, a toothbrush or a backpack or also effects. Prop designers tend to do effects as well, like smoke and fire and sparks and magic. Definitely understanding perspective is another important thing as a character designer. So this vehicle on the top here, um, understanding what it can look like from every angle and making sure that perspective is accurate and makes sense for that particular show. If it's sort of a straightforward show, if it's a show kind of like the one in the middle here, the violin, it's kind of a designy show where it has everything kind of angles that are pushed and not necessarily in reality. And then there's some simplistic shows like the toothbrush on the right. And very simple design, very round and appealing. Anything from, like I said, industrial or mechanical props, or like a tractor, or then also food and organic things and plants and desserts are helpful to include in there. Also, line weight, just like a character designer, having very different line weights um, is really important to highlight simple or complex props. Um, also, I have a little effects to show here, some examples of prop effects. These have been colored by a color designer, but you can see anything from water in a sink or sparks flying through the air or smoke or little light explosion there. So definitely understanding all those different areas is really important, or magic. I didn't put an example of magic in here. And then as I mentioned earlier, a character designer just designs the characters, or a prop designer just designs the props. And then you have a color designer, which then goes in and chooses all the colors in harmony with the background. And so these are some fun examples of different tones on a particular show and how the lighting affects that model and shows, there it's a emotional scene or a sort of a darker, intense scene. And so these are fun examples. And then here's another fun example I like to share to really highlights color design. So you have the sort of hero color or for a character, the straightforward, basic color palette on a character. But every time that character they go into a dark room, that's one color that the color designer has to figure out. If they flip on the light, that's a whole other color they have to figure out. Or if a character is holding a candle and there's like a highlight on them, or if there's a green ooze that's in the scene that's sort of casting a light on them. All that has to be figured out. So this is kind of a fun example of different you know um, overlays that can go over on a palette to tell whatever is happening in that particular story. We can get into storyboarding, and I have a couple fun examples for storyboarding. Before I go into those examples, being just like all the positions, bringing innovative or creative ideas to your boards, highlighting as a board artist, highlighting your filmmaking knowledge, your understanding to kind of think like a camera, or a film camera. Because like in this room, for example, you could put a camera in anywhere in this room, and you get a different emotional reaction from your audience. And so really understanding filmmaking knowledge and whatnot is really helpful. Having a variety, once again, of action storyboards or comedy storyboards or something with pathos or something with drama. Also, one big thing, song sequences is something that's really fun to include in any portfolio. All of our shows have musical elements to most of the episodes or most shows, and so definitely having like whether it's a montage kind of sequence or like just a character actually singing a song, um, definitely is fun to include. Once again, having foreground, middle ground, and background, having something that's a board that's really dynamic, more cinematic, and then you have maybe a more, straightforward show, sort of a flatter show, where the staging is pretty straightforward. Um, Also acting as a board artist, you want to sort of, use those acting skills and really put all that energy into those characters, into that performance and what's happening and what that scene and what story is taking place. Perspective is also a really helpful thing to know and highlight in a storyboard, a portfolio, staging, composition, all that sort of filmmaking knowledge as well, in addition to filmmaking knowledge, just understanding, like I said, depth and how to get a best reaction from the audience and what story you're particular telling. Just being a strong drafts person, board artists get, X period of time to finish one storyboard. So you want to be able to um, to to do quick, relatively quick drawings that have clarity and that are very clear what's happening in the scene. It doesn't have to, a storyboard doesn't have to necessarily be super clean like a coloring book and very consistent line art. That kind of takes the energy out of it a little bit, but having something that has a little bit of energy and and sort of hatching that can be a little rough drawings as long as there's clarity there. Because a storyboard is really kind of a blueprint for the rest of the production to know what sets they have to design, what props or new props they may have to design, or new characters they have to create, or new wardrobes they have to design. Um, so I can go in and show you a couple fun examples. Here's a funny sort of a comedy board that's also really unique and has really fun ideas and really sort of problem solving and really dynamic acting. So I can kind of tap through this. So this is a relatively short character, and then there's a reveal. So here's an example of an action board, something that's really, really dynamic, that has lots of great staging, and it's really almost like choreographed really well. So I can tap through this example. Even these drawings are really rough, but they're very clear of what's happening in the scene and what the acting and performing. All right, there we go. Let's see if we'll keep going. There's even a little humor in this one as well. Very dynamic, really strong staging. Remember, foreground, middle ground, and background. You can see a definite clarity there. Different, shot selections and or that scene right there alone, like having the character step into the shot is really fun to add to the drama and action. Mhm. Ooh. Mhm. And kind of like the hero pose here. I love that. So there's really there's humor to it, but there's also an intensity to it. All right, I'll show you the comedy one. See if that will work for us. These characters that are dancing that sort of wipes the scene, and we cut back. And then you realize he's wearing roller skates, some tall roller skates. So you see the sport artist was really dynamic in their staging and their comedy and their action and humor. There's good depth right there as well. There's a good example. Let me stop sharing. Glad those are able to work. I think we're about halfway through. Um, is anyone, I think, Judy, we can maybe get some questions if you'd like and kind of unpack any other areas. If there's any area like Atticus, thank you for mentioning the 3D angle. I forgot to mention that at the top. Definitely, I was kind of speaking mostly to 2D, but definitely all these areas, absolutely, they sort of dovetail with 3D 3D knowledge as well, or 3D production.
Hi. Yeah, there were a few questions, and I also put people on mute so I can take them off. But let's just first start off with the questions that I saw in the chat. And the first question is, what is the balance of having range and diversity in a portfolio and limiting it for either quality and confidence in what you're applying for, like solely putting animation or putting storyboards and character designs as well? I've talked with industry recruiters before about this and have gotten varying answers. I'm curious what you have to say about this.
Very good question. Definitely um, having different areas and like if you're a character designer, having prop design in there as well. Of course, anyone, I'd encourage anyone to learn, a variety of things, absolutely, or include, a variety of things in your portfolio if you're interested in multiple things. But definitely just making it clear, if you had like a website, for example, making sure that if they all weren't together, making sure that they were like, and this is just my suggestion, like having different tabs. So if you were interested in certain roles, then they know which, like, okay, they're a location designer. There's no question, and here's their locations. They can review all those different designs and that variety. Because every series is kind of looking for their style, and so being able to capture that and highlight that you're showing your ability to adapt to different styles um, is something that a production you definitely wants to see their style, and that you can kind of hit the ground running and be successful on that particular production.
Okay, there's people's hands raised, so I'll call on Nicholas Robinson. Nicholas, you should be able to unmute yourself now. There you go.
Hi, Kyle. My
Hey,
name is
Nicholas.
Nicholas Robinson, but you can call me Nick. And I've been screenwriting since 2020. I've written two pilots and one feature. One pilot is animated, one is a multi-cam sitcom, and one is a feature film. And I have a question. What is the opportunity for screenwriters with autism can, can Disney can offer them?
Can you mention that answer that, or mention that question one more time? I'm having trouble hearing.
Um,
He
what the
was
opportunity,
asking, go ahead.
what is the opportunity for screenwriters like me and Disney can offer them?
I can't speak to every writing area, but definitely, one piece of advice, definitely as a writer, you want to be able to have, whether that be, comedy or a drama or something with a lot of humor or emotion, like just having, different samples in your of script samples and showing, just to, like once again, I told you I'd be redundant, but definitely variety and your different, having a short, almost like an SNL sketch, kind of short comic sketch, and then having maybe like a 7-minute episode or a 22-minute episode or something longer form or shorter form, just to show your ability to adapt to different writing styles and different character voices and making sure having a spec script or an original script. So just having something that like no different than an artist portfolio and another production is looking for that sort of that tone and sensibility of their particular show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
No problem.
Hey, McSpadden, you're next on my screen.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm a concept artist and I do occasional voiceover work and I'm a studio artist currently at Exceptional Minds. Um, I'm trying to broaden my portfolio. I know they say you have to, I hear a lot of different answers from different people, but at Disney, what do you look for in a portfolio that showcase adaptability and versatility? And also, do you look for more grounded, realistic art styles since a lot of my usual styles more lean towards that and I'm trying to diversify to more cartoonier stuff?
Very good question. Definitely, um, photorealistic or really, really dynamic, realistic type shows can happen and can come along, sort of in the, generally in the, sort of kids and family space, there can be some of those, whether it be a 3D or 2D show, but definitely having something, you know, realistic in your portfolio is absolutely great or fine, because you never know what some production may respond to, but definitely having that other end of simplistic, really breaking down the shape language, pulling away all those realistic things, is great to have too. But definitely having, concept art or something, if you're interested in concept art, absolutely, like, that can be more in the that could be tends to go more in the live action, or feature animation space, as opposed to the television space, which I can speak to. And so, but definitely, if that's an area, concept art is something, definitely having those different worlds, and showing you can do something really, bright and colorful, or something a little more darker, moody. So just kind of like all these areas that I was chatting about definitely can apply to concept art as well.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Kyle.
you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much.
Next is Jordan Wood.
Hi, Jordan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. I had asked this in the chat earlier, but I was especially curious because I'm a 2D artist, animator myself. I don't have like a huge portfolio on me, but I was curious to know how much there should be within sorry, how much there should be within a portfolio to make it good and worth looking at.
Very good question. Thank you for asking. I should have mentioned at the top. Definitely having having, if you have, let's say, storyboards, if you're a storyboard artist, having just like few examples of storyboards, or maybe like 3 to 5 single panel PDFs, or links on your website would suffice, as long as they're all very different, would be a suggestion. And then if you wouldn't need to have a whole bunch of stuff, is because then you can kind of some of them might be similar. So you just want to make sure that they're all so different. Um, and then, um, and then if you're a character designer or a background painter, for example, just having, a handful of backgrounds, 5 to 8, or maybe 10 backgrounds, depending. Um, you wouldn't have to have a whole bunch. Like I said, just as long as they show what texture, or simple, complex, interiors, exteriors. Even if it was let's say you worked on a particular show, and that was like your first show that you worked on, and then you only had backgrounds from that particular show. Even just showcasing variety within that one show, could be helpful to include in a portfolio. Just, interiors, exteriors, close-ups, wide shots, um, dynamic shots, or just straightforward shots. So definitely, um, that's helpful as well. Hopefully I answered.
Thank-
Hopefully I
Thank you. Thanks, Kyle.
Mhm.
So Chris Helmessy, you're next.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to
Former
see you.
intern.
Yep, good to see you too
Good to
again.
see you. You probably heard all this for a whole 12 weeks during the program.
Yes.
Yes. What was your question, Chris? Great to see you.
Great to see you too again. So anyway, so right now I'm doing like as a job, I'm doing animation work here at Exceptional Minds, and
Mhm.
like in addition to like animation, on my portfolio, I have like whole bunch of other stuff that include like character design. I have some 3D work there and background work there. And I was just wondering, like, I mean, would it be like better if all of those were like if I like focus on like one thing on my website? Like, like the thing I do the most is character design. So I was like, maybe I should just like dedicate my whole like website to character design, so it's like less convoluted, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Definitely on your website, you could have like a whole variety of stuff in there. Like I said, just if it was like different tabs is the best way to describe it. Like, so that if if you were sending someone a character design portfolio, you could just send them the character design link. Or if it was like um, a prop link, or a PDF, if you're sending someone a PDF of just your character stuff,
Yeah.
or just your prop stuff. But I think having a whole website full of just one area could be fine, but definitely, if in case they're, like a background painter, for example, some of them tend to do location design as well, so they'd want to highlight both. And it's like, and and so, or maybe, you know, um, as a character designer, they want to see some of your props just to see perspective, or, shape language or line work. So even seeing some of those different areas could be helpful glimpse into seeing how strong of a character designer someone is. So definitely excluding them wouldn't be, I wouldn't encourage it, but as long as they're kind of separated, and as far as like tabs that that they know that this is all your character stuff, and so they can review that, or if they're only reviewing that.
Yeah,
Is that
I do have actual tabs like pertaining to each like like for character and background design. So, but I definitely do want to look into like having them like be separated on like PDFs, because I think that would be, having had just one thing like for them like focus on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank
All right,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank
You have a
you.
good rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Next is Atticus Baldwin. Hi, Atticus.
Hi, Atticus.
Hey, hey, what's up, Kyle? Hey,
Good to see you.
I, I, I'm I'm pretty good myself with, coming up with designs for like some new characters and new locations I create, but I mean, I'm not really, I'm not really like an expert at the drawing or sketching part. But I'm good at like describing, how they look. I've been lately I've been writing my own original stories for Thomas and Friends, a long running show, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. And I've
Mhm.
also been coming up with a few ideas for Sesame Street, and lately I've been creating my own original characters for Thomas and Friends, and creating my own locations. And my friend
Cool.
my friend Tyler Berman's been helping me draw pictures of them, and
Very
a
cool.
few
Yeah.
other friends of mine have been helping me too. And uh, um, and of course, don't get me wrong, for those folks who are like into 2D animation, I like them too, but I kind of like 3D animation a teensy bit better. No offense to all those who like 2D animation style, like original Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, and all that stuff. I like them, but I kind of like computer animation and live action CGI blend kind of better. No
No,
offense.
that's no problem. Whatever you enjoy doing, whatever you're passionate about is great. Um, you're talking about character descriptions. The same way that an artist, uses a pencil or Cintiq or a stylus to flesh out, a character design, and making all those things read, with who that character is, and with the shape and the line, um, and all of that is done visually. But definitely, if you're a writer interested in writing, having character descriptions, um, sort of highlighting all, writing all those different areas and describing, because as a character designer, that's what you'd get from, the team to, you know, you get the storyboard as well as you know, the little character description, for you to visually, draw that character. But definitely, it would be fun to, if you're building worlds or building characters, to having a full big description, and instead of visually describing it, you're just, with the written word. I think that's fun. It's a fun exercise.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Atticus.
because I know some people may only create like a lot of like, you know, probably might create like one or two or even 10 or 12 characters at first, but over the years, ever since I graduated from high school, I created overall, I created 100 new original
Huh?
characters for Thomas and Friends, and
That's fun.
I'm still working on like personality traits for them.
No,
Thanks
it's
a
fun.
lot, Atticus.
Thank you,
We have,
Atticus.
I hate to cut anybody off, but we have over 7 or 8 people who have questions, so I want to make
Yeah.
sure we fit them all
Right.
in, but thank you, Atticus.
Yeah, and thanks for
Austin,
listening, Kyle. Thank you.
No problem. Happy to help.
Austin,
Hello, Kyle.
Hi, Austin.
Um, I'm kind of a storyboarding production kind of guy,
Cool.
and right now I'm in production at Exceptional Minds,
Great.
and so my question is, I guess, sort of a small one. Like, excuse me. How do you know when you can like take older projects off your portfolio and switch them out for newer ones?
No, so make sure I'm answering your question correctly. So you're saying like how long until you should take something out to put something new in?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay, perfect. I mean, definitely as an artist and a storyteller, I hope you do, you keep growing as an artist and a storyteller, and you keep flexing those muscles and getting better and better and better. And so if if there's a new piece in your portfolio or a new storyboard, for example, like if it was a song sequence that you put a lot of energy into and it was really dynamic and interesting, visually interesting, you know, that would be kind of the area, that I would say if you had something that was a little more simplistic or sort of showed your earlier in your career or maybe things you've learned, in the future or have learned on a production or something. It's a hard one to answer when to take something out. I would say you're just continuing to grow as an artist, and so stuff that may not highlight and showcase your work that would show that you wouldn't know. Not saying that right. Um, um, just so your work keeps getting better and better and better, and so anything in there that shows sort of your early, um,
Like maybe
um,
your early growth.
yes, thank you. You said that was the word I was searching for. Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that would be the key. If there's a piece in your portfolio that you think is amazing and highlights and showcases your work and what you love to do, even if it's something that's super old, that's from, if as long as it's a great example of your work and, you wouldn't have to take it out just because it's been X period of time if it showcases your work really well, but it's something better that you've done on a production, meaning something your growth as an artist and storyteller. I would include any of that stuff too. That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Our next question is from Michael Zipkashu.
Hi, Michael.
Hi,
Yes,
Michael, take
that's
yourself
correct.
off mute. There you go.
Yes, that's correct. Hi, I'm Michael Shu. I'm a 2D animator and designer working at
Yeah.
Exceptional Minds. I'm currently looking
Cool.
for a job that's focused on these type of topics, but is it all right for you to like use create your own like designs and try out the different varieties of other styles to put in your portfolio as well? Like either it's from like a personal project of your own, or you try use it to try to practice on other styles as well.
Very good question. Definitely in your portfolio, having those different styles, it wouldn't, um, and hopefully, I can make it. I provide a little clarity here. You wouldn't want to have necessarily, let's say you worked on a particular show and you had and that had aired and it was appropriate and to include that in any in portfolio or when applicable, then you could include that potentially into a portfolio. And then you could show a different variety within that series. Or if you worked on multiple series, then you want to include those. But if you hadn't worked on a particular production, for example, you could create your own sort of, world or characters. I wouldn't necessarily try and emulate one particular show. This is just my suggestion. I wouldn't emulate one particular show because you would want to make sure that it's on model and actually like sort of accurate to that show. Because if someone didn't hit that show style right, like really strongly, that might show that you couldn't hit that style. Like you wouldn't want that to hurt you or hinder you, for lack of a better word. Um, so like fan art, for example, like is fun to do and people enjoy that, but maybe in a portfolio, kind of having something that's not replicating a certain show, but it maybe is something that could be similar in tone or style, like or line weight. Maybe it's not, maybe it's just sort of inspired by that show as opposed to literally being that particular show if an individual didn't work on that particular production. Does that make sense?
Right. So
So more
yeah,
inspired by rather than
smart.
literal, like this is X show, So
Right.
sort of having characters that you of your own that sort of could fit comfortably within that sort of tone of style as opposed to
Yes.
literal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's understood.
Thank you.
cool.
Thank you,
Good question.
Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Thomas
Hi.
Cameron Stewart. Thanks. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, I'm also in this with Jordan because we were in the same JDS studio program and we did attend to your autism entertainment back in Los Angeles.
Oh, great.
And I also in studying 2D animation and I sometimes when I try to make human character moves, I try recording myself first and then
Mm,
try to trace it over, but not before I draw the 2D design of it.
mm,
And I one time came up with an idea with using some of Disney characters by combining them with Marvel hero guys. Think of it
nice.
to help you don't steal the idea.
Mm,
Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Avengers, kind of like a title after the Three Musketeers one you guys did.
it's fun.
Try combining Mickey
And
Mouse and Thor as well as Captain America, and you got Captain Thundermouse. Anyway, the
mhm.
question I should
Oh,
be related, huh?
I was gonna say that just that's fun exploration. It's fun.
Anyway, what I need to ask is when you're trying to, this might be a little off topic, but when you're trying to animate a character or something, what's the maximum length of move time you want him to move from? Because when I was trying to draw a character doing a martial art movements and I I hit a real brick. It's like I get tired quickly. Like when I can barely get at least a minute done now. I mean, I already
Um,
did the stick line and
mm,
gave it muscle shapes of some sort,
that's
just
great.
but not details. So when you get kind of stuck like that, when you kind of like
Mm.
burn out, I mean, am I going too far? Because it's only a minute long.
I would say if you were mentioned at the top, but you were recording yourself, any sort of as an artist having reference is really, really important. So if you were acting or performing in a scene that you were going to animate, definitely recording, and especially nowadays, shoot on your phone, recording yourself and then using that as a reference could be helpful before you start fully animating. Oops, I froze a little bit. It's a good pose. That was a good pose.
Not a bad pose. Get picture perfect.
Yeah. Um, or the other advice, for reference is, or to start before you fully go on and animate that full scene is doing thumbnails is also really important. Really sort of hashing it out in fast, quick drawings to really have you to sit next to you to really be a blueprint or a guide for when you're fully animating it. That can help with the timing. And you talked about the timing and keeping the timing great. So if you're just going pose to pose, you could go from this pose to this pose. That's not a good example, but how long does that take? And then that could help you if you thumbnail it out, whether you're recording yourself or thumbnail it out pose by pose. That could help you figure out the timing. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Judy, we probably had time for maybe one more or so.
Okay.
Well, this has been fun. Hopefully It's been a little helpful. Sorry if I'm long-winded.
Yep. So I was talking earlier. I mentioned I've been writing a couple of scripts for companies like Disney, Nickelodeon. Yep. Most of which I've sent to different companies. Yep. They're basically story ideas for already existing stuff, as well as some of my own ideas.
Hmm.
I also see myself doing some voice acting. Like,
Mm.
and lately I've been looking into like most Disney and other company workers that are autistic. I've been looking into that better.
Yeah, if you're a writer, storyteller, definitely knowing and understanding that particular audience that you're speaking to at that particular place and what their sort of tone or sensibility or style or everything's so different, but having understanding what particular place, what their sort of forte is, and making sure that you're capturing that in any samples or portfolio samples or writing samples. If it was you wouldn't necessarily want to provide a horror scary film to someone who they're looking for, like preschool storytelling or writers. I'm not saying they wouldn't read them or be interested in them, but on that particular series, you'd want to make sure that that's the flavor or the tone of that particular show, and the pacing is also that you're sort of highlighting that. So kind of just, for lack of a better phrase, like sort of knowing your audience and who that particular what they may be interested in, or doing research on what they have done in the past, or with their sort of comfort zone, I think could be
Yeah.
helpful.
I see myself writing for anyone of any age. I feel like most of the companies I
Perfect.
see myself working for, I think I know what they'll be into, and I think they could like. I see myself. I think I know which genres and type of age groups I'll be working for.
No, that's great. Definitely understanding, being able to have that breadth of variety, and as a writer and a storyteller is important. Having those in your back pocket, action and comedy and everything. It's great.
Yeah, and I know like many people seem to have so many issues with certain like companies like Disney these days. I feel like some of the ideas that written will really resolve these issues, addressing their complaints.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Kyle. This was just a wonderful hour. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to those that are disappointed that they weren't able to ask their questions. That said, I also wanted to mention that we have a LinkedIn group, and I put the link in the chat. And that's a really good way for you can join the group, and you can be in a position to speak to each other, share your work. If you've got a project that you have coming up, it allows you a way to reach out and say, hey, I need a voice actor, and reach out to Atticus, or hey, I need someone to design the characters, and you could reach out to Josh Bass or whoever.
Yeah,
So
just
I
noticed
just
the link.
wanted to mention that as another resource that Autism and Entertainment is making available to you.
Yes, only a week or two ago, I decided to sign up for LinkedIn. I've already connected with a couple of autistic like workers, and now I just saw this company. I think I'll be looking into it as well.
Okay, that's great. Well, Kyle,
Okay, I
any
found it.
last
Thank
words?
you.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I said I found it. Thank you.
Okay.
My own characters and
Well, it's very nice meeting everyone or chatting with everyone, and thank you for having me. And thank you, Judy. Appreciate all your help.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be opening up a private breakout room for Kyle and Russell, and I will do that right now.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
seeing you again, Kyle.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for joining.